The financial squeeze, breaking America from within. America's collapse isn't being televised through explosions or foreign invasions. It's happening quietly, in grocery aisles, gas stations, and the inboxes where bills arrive like threats. The real war is being fought inside American households, and the enemy is the cost of living. Every necessity has become a financial chokehold. Food prices rise faster than paychecks. Gas stations drain wallets. Health insurance costs more than rent. Americans are not just living, they're surviving. Barely, over 60% of the population now lives paycheck to paycheck. And almost half can't handle a $500 emergency. That's not bad luck. That's systemic rot. Debt has ballooned to a record $18.1 trillion, and credit card interest hovers above 22%. Rents have exploded by 31% since 2020. Yet wages haven't moved in real terms. People are working harder, longer, for less reward. The American middle class, once the backbone of the country, is slowly being gutted. The game is rigged. No matter how much effort people put in, the math doesn't work anymore. You can follow every rule, save every dollar, and still fall behind. The collapse isn't loud, but it's real. It's the slow erosion of financial stability, the fading of security, and the quiet despair of millions realizing that making it has become an illusion. The cost of living isn't just rising, it's consuming lives, turning ordinary Americans into economic hostages trapped inside a system designed to bleed them dry. This isn't a dip in the cycle, it's the beginning of a structural breakdown where surviving costs more than living ever did. Debt. The silent collapse eating the middle class. The real collapse isn't on Wall Street, it's in kitchen tables covered in overdue notices. Household debt has become America's slow poison, killing financial stability, one bill at a time. Non-housing debt, credit cards, student loans, auto loans just jumped $45 billion in a single quarter, now totaling more than $3 trillion. Total household debt sits at around $18 trillion, a record level. People aren't living off income anymore. They're living off borrowed time and borrowed money. Imagine earning $3,000 a month and sending $1,000 straight to debt. You're not living, you're existing. You're keeping creditors fed while your life shrinks. Delinquencies are creeping up. 4% of all outstanding debt is now in trouble. That's not a few irresponsible people, that's the mainstream. Every rate hike turns what used to be a manageable payment into a financial emergency. Americans are paying more just to stand still. The more they pay, the less they live. The system's brilliance is in its invisibility. Debt feels personal, but it's collective collapse disguised as individual failure. It's not that people aren't working hard, it's that the system keeps raising the price of survival. Debt has become the lifeblood of the economy and the chain around its workers' necks. It's the perfect trap, the illusion of freedom financed by a lifetime of repayment. And while the rich leverage debt to build wealth, the average American drowns in it, paying for yesterday's groceries with tomorrow's income. This is how collapse happens, quietly, through interest rates, missed payments, and shrinking options, until the middle class becomes a myth that used to exist. The wage mirage, working more, owning less. The American worker has been sold a lie that hard work guarantees progress. That used to be true. Now it's a joke told by people who don't check grocery prices. Median household income in 2024 was $83,730, almost identical to 2019 when adjusted for inflation. That means 5 years of labor, nothing gained. Meanwhile, housing, healthcare, childcare, and insurance costs have soared. The so-called cooling inflation is a myth. It's like lowering the temperature while the house burns. Even as the Federal Reserve brags about bringing inflation back to 2%, families are crushed under service-based inflation. Rent, utilities, and healthcare, the things you can't avoid. When your income rises by 2%, but your expenses rise by 5%, you're not getting ahead. You're bleeding slowly. The American worker has been trapped in a wage mirage. Numbers that look stable on paper, but mean poverty in reality. The bootstraps ideology collapses when the straps are frayed. This isn't about laziness or bad budgeting. It's structural. The system was built for a time when effort equaled reward, but that equation is dead. Now, even professionals with degrees and full-time jobs can't afford homes, can't save for emergencies, and can't retire. The trust that once defined the American dream is eroding. People feel betrayed because the working class isn't moving forward. It's running in place while the treadmill speeds up. The result isn't just economic strain, it's a national breakdown in faith. A deep, burning realization that the dream is slipping away no matter how hard you fight. Housing. The financial trap that devours stability. Housing is the epicenter of the American collapse, the place where survival costs explode. Forget the headlines about manageable inflation. The biggest inflation in America is in your rent and mortgage. The median monthly cost of owning a home has hit $2,035, and for new homeowners, it's closer to $2,025. Renting isn't much better. Median rent sits at $1,397, up 4.1% in a year, and that's just rent, not utilities, not food, not insurance. The problem isn't just rising costs, it's shrinking supply. The housing market is broken at every level. High interest rates, weaker construction, and stagnant wages have created a choke point. Fewer homes, more demand, and zero affordability. The result: families forced into smaller spaces, moving further away from work or living one rent hike away from eviction. Housing, once the foundation of the middle class, has become a trap, a debt prison for owners and a survival game for renters. A missed payment means your credit tanks. A rent increase means your savings evaporate. And when housing becomes unstable, so does everything else. Schools, communities, family life, mental health. The home was once America's ultimate dream. Now it's the biggest financial liability most people will ever have. Owning a home doesn't bring stability anymore, it brings anxiety. Renting doesn't bring flexibility, it brings fear. This is how the system eats itself. When a society's shelter becomes unaffordable, collapse isn't coming. It's already here. The roof over your head isn't protection anymore. It's a price tag that grows every year while your income stays frozen. And that's how America's collapse begins. Not with a bang, but with a mortgage statement. When survival itself becomes a luxury, America has reached a critical juncture where the fundamental components of survival, food, clean water, adequate heat, and essential healthcare, are now being treated not as basic rights, but as premium goods, accessible only to a privileged few. Families that once comfortably navigated a middle-class life are now being brutally forced to make trade-offs that just a generation ago would have been considered utterly unthinkable. For many households, grocery bills have not merely increased, but have effectively doubled, not because people are consuming more, but because the cost of everyday staples has insidiously crept up month after agonizing month. Items like meat, poultry, and eggs now demand prices higher than ever before, pushing countless families towards cheaper, often less nutritious, processed foods as their only viable option. Similarly, natural gas and electricity bills have transformed into monthly nightmares, presenting a cruel dilemma where people are literally forced to choose between the warmth and safety of heating their homes or ensuring their children have enough to eat. Healthcare, once a societal expectation, has devolved into an unaffordable privilege, leaving even those with insurance plans burdened by crushing medical debt that can obliterate years of savings. And transportation, which acts as a vital lifeline connecting individuals to jobs, education, and opportunity, now consumes an ever larger portion of dwindling incomes, especially as fuel prices and car maintenance costs continue their relentless ascent. When one further factors in the escalating costs of education, skyrocketing rents, and mandatory insurance premiums, the very act of survival begins to feel like an exhausting, unwinnable race against a growing stack of bills. The middle class is not merely shrinking, it is being systematically hollowed out, not by a sudden, catastrophic event, but by a slow, relentless process of financial suffocation. Essentials have become elusive luxuries, and luxuries themselves have faded into distant fantasy. This phenomenon is far more profound than mere inflation. It is an economic erosion that is tearing at the moral and social fabric of the country from the inside out, leaving widespread despair in its wake. The new age of financial fragility, the long-cherished illusion of financial stability in America, is now cracking and crumbling with alarming speed. A stark reality has emerged. The vast majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, perched precariously on the edge of disaster, often just one unexpected car repair or a single hospital visit away from complete financial ruin. More than half the population lacks the crucial ability to cover even 3 months of basic expenses, while the national savings rate has plummeted to near historic lows, underscoring a profound lack of a safety net for millions. This isn't a consequence of individual carelessness or profligacy. Rather, it's a systemic issue where the cost of living has outpaced what the existing economic system pays its workers. Bank balances that in a healthy economy were expected to grow steadily have instead stagnated for years, while credit card debt has simultaneously exploded to unprecedented record-breaking highs. The average family is now caught in a vicious cycle, financing not just emergencies but everyday life itself with borrowed money, and this collective debt burden is becoming suffocating. For these families, a single missed paycheck can trigger a catastrophic chain reaction: unpaid rent, an accumulation of overdue bills, and in many tragic cases, even eviction. The economy doesn't collapse with dramatic fireworks. It collapses quietly, insidiously, when millions of people gradually lose their financial safety nets, when countless families find themselves living on the knife's edge with absolutely nothing to fall back on. America's financial system, for too many, is no longer about fostering growth or creating opportunity. It has devolved into a relentless struggle for sheer survival. A fundamentally fragile economy, built upon the backs of equally fragile people, simply cannot endure it. And right now, it feels like only a matter of time before this fragile illusion shatters completely, revealing the deep cracks beneath the false freedom of the gig economy. Yet, for millions of Americans who have embraced it, it has instead become a deceptive trap, an illusion of opportunity masquerading as progress. What was marketed as flexible work has largely turned into an unstable, low-paying hustle that barely generates enough income to cover basic bills, much less allow for savings or long-term planning. Uber drivers, delivery workers, independent freelancers, and digital creators across the spectrum are often found running on fumes, constantly struggling, earning just enough to survive another day, but never enough to truly breathe, to feel secure, or to advance. The stark reality of this model is the absence of crucial safety nets. There are no employer-provided benefits, no access to affordable health care, and no meaningful retirement plans. Only the relentless, demanding grind of constantly chasing the next gig. Many individuals are forced to juggle not just one, but two or even three such jobs simultaneously, simply to stay afloat, thereby fueling an economic system that relies heavily on their exhaustion and precarity. The irony is excruciating. America champions this as self-employment, yet for countless individuals, it more closely resembles a modern-day form of economic servitude. Consumer spending might superficially appear robust, but it is too often fueled by unsustainable debt rather than genuine increasing real income. People are working harder and longer hours than ever before, yet they are simultaneously finding themselves moving backward financially. The once cherished promise of upward mobility has largely collapsed. The gig economy offers endless movement, but tragically little actual progress. It is a relentless treadmill of financial instability that effectively traps millions in a state of permanent precarity, constantly fighting to keep their heads above water. The much-touted future of work has, for too many, morphed into the grim present of mere survival, and the inspiring dream of independence has been reduced to a daily exhausting hustle just to make ends meet. The great inflation line. The government persistently asserts that inflation is under control, a claim that elicits either outright laughter or simmering anger from any American asked about their experiences at the grocery store or the gas pump. The official figures, often cited as a benign 7% or 3% inflation rate, bear little resemblance to the harsh reality faced by everyday households. The undeniable truth is that the costs of essential goods and services, such as shelter, groceries, fuel, and utilities, are surging at rates far exceeding these reported averages. When a family's rent suddenly jumps by a staggering 20% or their weekly grocery bill inexplicably doubles, that carefully calculated 2.7% statistic becomes utterly meaningless, a hollow echo in the face of their daily financial struggle. The system, it seems, conveniently hides behind broad averages and aggregated data, yet people do not experience their lives in averages. They experience them in the specific, tangible costs of their own daily existence. Furthermore, wages have demonstrably failed to keep pace with the true escalating cost of living, and this widening gap expands with each passing month, pushing more families into financial distress. This deception is not accidental, it is deliberate. By presenting calm, reassuring numbers on paper, the system attempts to avert widespread panic, while millions of individuals quietly, desperately drown in ever-increasing costs. Inflation, in this context, has been weaponized into a tool of denial, a convenient smokescreen designed to obscure a collapsing standard of living for vast segments of the population. The labor market illusion. America loves to brag about its strong job market, consistently pointing to a low unemployment rate. However, that illusion falls apart the moment you look past the superficial headlines and dive into the data's grim realities. The widely cited unemployment rate, hovering around 4%, is often a misleading figure, an economic disguise that conveniently omits a significant portion of the struggling workforce. It hides millions of individuals who have simply stopped looking for work, discouraged and sidelined from the official count. It also overlooks millions more who are scraping by on part-time jobs they never wanted, unable to secure the full-time stable employment necessary to support themselves or their families. Furthermore, countless workers are trapped in low-wage gigs that barely cover rent, let alone provide a living wage. These people are technically employed according to government metrics, but they are far from thriving, they're barely surviving. The system pats itself on the back for creating jobs, while countless Americans are forced to juggle multiple jobs, working exhausting hours just to pay one set of increasingly expensive bills. The average worker today, despite increased productivity, earns less in real terms than they did 20 years ago, even as corporate profits hit record highs and executive bonuses soar. Long-term unemployment remains a quiet, persistent plague, with nearly 2 million people out of work for more than half a year, their skills atrophying, their savings dwindling. Behind every help-wanted sign, there's often a job that pays too little, demands too much, and offers no genuine security or path to advancement. Employers know this too. They exploit this widespread desperation, cutting benefits, reducing wages, and lowering standards because they can, taking advantage of a surplus of anxious labor. The American labor market isn't genuinely strong. It's a market built on desperation and exploitation. It's constructed on the illusion of opportunity while millions are trapped in financial quicksand, perpetually struggling to get by. The country isn't producing wealth for its workers anymore. Instead, it's actively extracting it, leaving the majority behind. Healthcare costs. The silent killer. If you want to understand the true depth of American pain and systemic failure, look no further than the healthcare system. It operates as the quietest, most insidious, and brutally effective way to bankrupt an entire population. A single unexpected hospital visit can wipe out years of carefully accumulated savings, leaving families devastated. One severe illness, a sudden diagnosis, can send a family from the comfortable middle class straight into homelessness. Unable to cope with the crushing financial burden, the U.S. spends nearly 18% of its gross domestic product on healthcare, a staggering amount, far more than any other developed nation. But what do its citizens actually get for this astronomical investment? They get crippling debt, an endless stream of opaque bills, and pervasive anxiety that accompanies every cough, every ache, or every minor injury. Healthcare isn't healing America, it's systematically hollowing it out. One overwhelming bill at a time, eroding the financial stability and well-being of its citizens. The death of the American dream. Once upon a time, Americans were fed a simple, compelling narrative. If you worked hard, saved diligently, pursued an education, and stayed honest, you could build a good, prosperous life for yourself and your family. That foundational story, the quintessential American dream, is now unequivocally dead. It has been replaced by the harsher reality of the American struggle, a constant grinding and often exhausting effort just to maintain one's current precarious position, let alone advance. Wages no longer stretch to cover basic necessities, while rents explode year after year, consuming an ever larger portion of household income. The cost of education buries young people in lifelong debt before they even begin their careers, turning higher learning into a crippling financial burden. Basic economic security, once a given for many, has become an unreachable aspiration for millions. Owning a home, once the quintessential sign of success and stability, is now an impossible fantasy for millions of working families, especially younger generations. Parents are forced to work double shifts, sometimes juggling multiple jobs, and still can't afford quality daycare or childcare, impacting both their finances and their children's well-being. College graduates enter the workforce already drowning in insurmountable student loans, delaying major life milestones. And saving for retirement, for most, particularly those living paycheck to paycheck, that concept is a cruel joke, an unattainable goal in the face of immediate financial pressures. The idea that hard work inherently guarantees success is a deeply ingrained lie, perpetuated to keep people grinding in their jobs while corporations and the wealthy collect the lion's share of the profits. The entire system was built for a different era, a time when a single income could comfortably support a family, allowing for homeownership, savings, and a secure retirement. That world, that economic reality, no longer exists. The American dream didn't die suddenly in a dramatic collapse. It was quietly strangled over decades by unchecked greed, relentless inflation, deliberate policy failures, and a system increasingly rigged against the average citizen. What's left is a nation of exhausted citizens, clinging to a fading nostalgia for a bygone era, while the very system they were taught to believe in collapses slowly but surely under its own unsustainable weight. The structural collapse and the harsh truth. America isn't merely going through a bad phase or a temporary economic downturn, it's undergoing a profound and accelerating structural decay. The collapse isn't some distant future event, it's happening right now in agonizing slow motion across every facet of society. The relentless cost of living, housing, food, energy, has long outgrown the system that was supposed to sustain it, leaving millions perpetually behind. Wages, affordable housing, accessible healthcare, and quality education are now permanently misaligned, creating a vicious loop of dependency that traps millions in a cycle of poverty and debt. The government, rather than acting as a solution, often exacerbates the problem, or at best offers insufficient stopgap measures. Because in many ways, the current system benefits from people staying dependent on debt, on credit, on broken promises, and a perpetual search for relief. Waiting passively for a return to normal is not just naive, it's a dangerous delusion, because normal as we once knew it is irrevocably gone. The only viable path forward for ordinary citizens is through radical self-reliance, heightened awareness of systemic vulnerabilities, and a focus on building local resilience within communities. People must learn to live with less, depend more on their immediate communities for support and resources, and actively detach from the failing national systems that are already in the process of fracturing. The financial, social, and political structures that once provided stability are all cracking under immense pressure, and pretending otherwise is an act of self-destructive denial. The wealthy elite have already adapted. They've built their escape routes, acquired backup homes in secure locations, and diversified their assets through offshore accounts, safeguarding themselves from the impending fallout. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans are being systematically left behind, distracted by sensational headlines, perpetually divided by partisan politics, and lulled into complacency, while the very foundation of their society gives way. The collapse isn't coming from an external enemy or a sudden cataclysm. It's happening from within, fueled by insatiable greed, widespread denial, and deep-seated systemic decay. Only those who see this grim reality clearly, who acknowledge the harsh truth, will be able to adapt in time and build new foundations. Everyone else will inevitably go down, still believing the comforting, yet deadly lie that everything is fundamentally fine.